What is bigger than what? The sword or the pen? Is it military power and the conquests of war that shape the world? Or is it the power of words and ideas that is stronger, more influential, more enduring? For Jabotinsky, it was not simply a dichotomous question, a question framed only in terms of opposite extremes. It's not black and white. It's the combination. Jabotinsky would naturally switch from the pen to the sword and from the sword to the pen. The sword protects the people and their values, while the pen gives national existence, meaning, and legacy. How do I know this? Because these days it has been 100 years since the completion of Jabotinsky's important book, Shimshon. Shimshon. I don't know if you know this, but a Hollywood movie was made from Jabotinsky's book. And Samson, the biblical figure, one of the greatest judges of the biblical era, fought against the enemies of Israel, including in Gaza. Samson, who carried a lion cub in his hands, he himself was as strong as a lion. In the same way, we acted with determination last year in operations marked by courage and the roar of the lion, in which we managed to strike severe blows against the regime of terror in Iran and its emissaries. Jabotinsky's Samson leaves his successors the commandment to gather and consolidate an iron force. We are also determined to gather iron, to gather the essential weapons needed for the defense of our state, and we are following the path of defense self-reliance. Alongside our gratitude to our allies, the Americans, who help us with armaments, Israel needs to have an independent weapons production system. I want to clarify one more thing. There isn't a perfect correspondence between the biblical Samson and Jabotinsky's Samson if he held the copyright. But despite the differences between the figures, courage is the message that connects them. Jabotinsky placed a lot of hope in the Hebrew youth to form a Hebrew army and defend the land of Israel with sacrifice. I believe that now we can say that 3 years after the War of Independence, these hopes are being fulfilled beyond any expectations. As a continuation of Israel's previous wars, the War of Independence revealed the extraordinary strength of our young generation. We, members of the government, made thoughtful and courageous decisions to act step by step against those who seek our destruction. At the same time, our brave fighters, soldiers, and commanders acted step by step with enormous boldness on land, in the air, and at sea. Thoughtful, courageous decisions to crush the Iranian axis of evil that tried to surround us with a constant and dangerous ring of terror. And here is a heartbreaking closing of the circle from Jabotinsky's final days to the heroes of today. The new song Shemeshonim is dedicated by the author Zur Ehrlich to the memory of Avraham Azulay, of blessed memory from the Engineering Corps, and to his fellow bulldozer commanders. Abraham, one of those who paved the way in the Gaza Strip, fell in battle a year ago. This is what the song says about the new Shemeshonim, and see how strong they are. And what a mighty arm to tear apart evil. Immense and majestic like a volcano, his muscles are the first to feel the touch of fire. Ladies and gentlemen, Jabotinsky opposed the trend in certain circles today of embracing worldviews that happen to be fashionable at a given moment. The ideologies of territorialism, cosmopolitanism, Marxism, social communism, as well as libertarian anarchism. He was convinced that if you happen to adopt a worldview that ends in ism, that view should always serve the national idea. And so, Jabotinsky is identified with revisionism, the change in the forms of action of the Zionist movement in response to the anti-Zionist stance of the British Mandate government. My father, of blessed memory, was a student at the Hebrew University. And he told me, that the first time he really saw Jabotinsky was on the hilltop overlooking Jerusalem. There, in the imposing palace of the British High Commissioner, the commissioner was there and Jabotinsky stayed outside. Right in front of the British soldiers, he challenged their authority and declared firmly, "I speak freely, you will leave here. All of you will leave here because this is our sacred land." And my father was absolutely amazed and fascinated by all of that. He said he saw the courage, that immense boldness, and the spirit of sacrifice, because that was part of it. You know very well what that meant at that time, right? And that was his first big encounter, which a few years later was followed by another encounter. When my father traveled to London and explained to Jabotinsky that if he wanted to realize his vision, he needed to relocate. It won't be in England that international support for Zionism will be decided, but in America. Focus on convincing Americans, not the English. They're the ones who will force the English. That's exactly what he said. Jabotinsky called his entire delegation and said, "The young man, not the young man," my father was 29 at the time, he said to him, "He's right. They traveled to the United States, and there, a short time later, Jabotinsky passed away, and my father was among those who carried his coffin. But he had a vision that inspired everyone, all those who followed his path. Instead of appeasement and tolerance, firmness, a policy of applying pressure. That means standing firm regarding your interests. We also conducted a professional, thorough review of our security doctrine. 2 days after the October 7 attack and the terrible massacre, I promised that we would change the face of the Middle East, and in fact, we changed the rules of the game in the Middle East. There is no more tolerance for threats. There are no more terrorist armies on our borders. There are buffer zones that we have created inside the territory of our neighbors. The Gaza security zone is inside Gaza. The Lebanon security zone is inside Lebanon. The Golan security zone is inside Syria. We transformed this entire region, but above all, we changed ourselves. We finally managed to break the barrier of fear that persisted throughout the world for 47 years, ever since the moment of the abduction. From the territory of Iran, for example, this group of rulers, tyrants, and theocrats, absolutely no one has ever dared to attack Iran and its sovereign territory, except for Saddam Hussein for a short period. But we used it, and we used it well. We proved that we will not hesitate to strike with force anywhere against anyone who raises a hand against us. This revision, the changing of the old order, also shows itself in efforts to forge alliances. Thanks to the steady strengthening of our power, several foreign nations are seeking closer ties with us. This cooperation between us is growing stronger. Away from the spotlight, this is actually happening. And not just with one single nation, but with several other countries. And this also opens a very important door in the future for normalization and peace. Furthermore, another complementary aspect of contemporary revisionism is, I'll use this word, it might surprise some of you, the so-called contemporary activism. Activism is another central principle advocated by Jabotinsky. He referred to a policy of taking the initiative to take our destiny into our own hands, of waging a relentless struggle against hostile forces, and of adopting initiatives that serve our national goals. The Israeli initiative has taken a huge leap in this current war. We have settled the score with those who wish us harm, from Gaza to Yemen, from Lebanon to Iran. We acted with strength, determination, and extreme cunning against the Iranian Axis, which for years invested hundreds of billions of dollars to shed our blood. We brought back all our hostages, every last one of them. We destroyed many of the military capabilities of Iran and its allies. We've eliminated the immediate threat of Iran possessing nuclear weapons. And I stand here and pledge, as long as I am the Prime Minister of Israel, Iran will not have nuclear weapons. One of the pillars of Jabotinsky's activist approach is the principle of the iron wall. But today's iron wall is not a static wall, a fixed defense system in just one place. The wall is dynamic. It moves from one scenario to another with our pilots, with the crews of our missile ships and submarines, with the emergency forces maneuvering on land. But it also has aspects that are rooted on land, and I am referring, of course, to those security zones that we protect and will continue to protect as long as there is a threat from neighboring countries. And the iron wall is also a wall of vigilance and determination. We continue to demonstrate vigilance in the face of any threat. Whoever seeks confrontation will find it, and whoever wants the battle will have it. There will be a great battle. Anyone who underestimates our determination will end up paying an extremely high price. I say this to the tyrannical leaders of Iran. Do not underestimate us. If we are attacked, we will respond with force, but it will not be a repeat of the past. This will be a different broadcast, even more powerful. Jabotinsky, the father of military Zionism, was not a bloodthirsty militarist. He always made a point of emphasizing the vital need for Jewish strength in the face of the dangerous pack of wolves surrounding us. But at the same time, he also highlighted the profound and essential moral aspect of our struggle. Today, we are bravely fighting against the barbaric fanaticism that threatens us and the entire free world. This battle is for our very lives and fundamentally at the same time for freedom, for culture, and for human progress. This approach is in line with Jabotinsky's position regarding the instigators of violence in both world wars. Jabotinsky saw the Ottoman Empire, which was one of those responsible for World War I, as an oppressive regime destined to disappear from the world. With the beginning of World War II, Jabotinsky continued to follow his moral principles. He supported the creation of a Hebrew army that would fight alongside the Allies against Nazi Germany to save our people and at the same time save civilization and democracy. My father had the privilege of being by Jabotinsky's side during his last years in the United States and later wrote, "From resistance to tyranny and from the defense of independence arose that activist vision which constituted the core of Jabotinsky's doctrine, and from it derived his main contributions to Zionism." Ladies and gentlemen, my good friends, Jabotinsky, the leader, the beacon of Zionism, his thought and spirit radiate over the builders and defenders of the state. Israel is stronger than ever, and we are working to ensure that it becomes even stronger in the future. We have several challenges, or rather countless and great challenges still ahead of us. And precisely for this reason, I know that we urgently need a broad national government completely free of boycotts and without any kind of exclusion. Together, in such a government and with all the people, we will fulfill Jabotinsky's vision of a people who, after 2,000 years of passive suffering, once again rejoin the links in the chain of their ancient glory. I grew up with Jabotinsky. I remember Ari Jabotinsky during his many visits to our home, and I remember the dear Jabotinsky family. Luis, I read this book and I read every one of its words when I was young and then again in my adulthood. I personally regard him as one of the fathers of Zionism and as a person without whose doctrine it is doubtful whether we would be here. May the memory of Ziv Jabotinsky be blessed for all generations. Goodbye.
Thank you very much for watching this video until the end. Support our project and contribute financially through the Pix key that appears on your screen. We are an independent channel focused on keeping you truthfully informed. Your contribution helps us keep going.